gentlemen, welcome to America's Auto Enthusiast Program. This is Auto World. And now, here's your host, Bob Long.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me here for another hour of Auto World. In this hour of the program, we're going to be joined by our lubrication specialist with more than 25 years worth of experience. Dan Watson is standing by and is going to be taking your questions. We've got a bunch that have already come in. And don't forget, you can either call in at 855-660-4261 or shoot me an email, Bob at autoworldradio.com, or directly to Dan Watson at thelubepage.com. Well, it's been a little while since we've talked with Dan, so let's get him on the line here and welcome him into the airways of Auto World. How you doing there, Dan?
Hey, I'm doing well, Bob. Looks like we might have a big... if we hear any loud noises, it might be the thunder of the storm that seems to be developing outside, so it won't be that I crashed in my chair or anything.
Very good. Why don't we talk a little bit about an option of buying Amsoil factory direct at wholesale prices? This sounds too good to be true. Tell us more.
Well, it is an important option to remind our listeners because as I talk to them week in and week out about different questions and we talk about Amsoil products and quality and so forth, people sometimes, when they look into these things of synthetic oils, they go, well, you know, this stuff's pretty steeply priced and I just may not feel like I want to pay quite that much for a quart of oil. Well, actually, today, all lubrication products are priced higher. I just saw where a couple of the majors are increasing their finished product prices by 8, 9, and 10%. That's Phillips 66, Shell, and Chevron. And so we're talking about regular, good quality petroleum oil selling for $5 a quart. Now, I remember when synthetic oil was selling for $5 to $6 a quart, and people thought that was pretty high, but that's when petroleum was selling for 89 cents a quart. So it just keeps changing. These products get higher in cost because the raw materials of oil and chemicals and natural gas, these things go up in price, and of course the operating expenses of the companies that make the products, they go up too. So it just keeps going up. I wish I had a better answer than that. If somebody does, please call and let me know. Somehow we'll get behind them and they can run for Congress or something and do something about this. But so far we haven't got a way to figure out how to stop increasing prices. Now, Amsoil has had a program for a long, long time that allows an everyday customer to become what they call a preferred customer. Now, this program is similar to joining Sam's Club or BJ's or Costco, where you end up paying an annual membership fee and you buy everything at a discounted price. A pretty big discount, about 30% off of retail prices. Now, this program is effective for someone who has 2 or 3 cars and they're going to have enough consumption that the savings they have will more than offset the annual $20 registration fee. Amsoil send them out a monthly magazine and information, and they are set up to buy direct online or calling an 800 number or even purchasing from a dealer like me, identifying themselves as a preferred customer with a registration number. We got thousands of them all over the country because you can get, like I said, pretty high discounts. And if you own 3 vehicles, a boat, a couple of ATVs, whatever you got, you can find yourself spending $500 or $600 on products over the course of a year. And if you save, 30% off that, you can save $150 in a year off of what you would have spent if you paid the full online retail prices. So it's a program worth investigating, and I encourage anybody listening to us out there to contact me about it, because I'd be delighted to show them how to do that and to set them up in their own preferred customer membership. And I would also ask them that if they hear this information and they happen to go independently to the Amsoil website, it'll ask you if somebody referred you, and please use my name, Dan Watson. That's where you heard about Amsoil in the preferred customer program. That way I would end up being your sponsor, and that gives you direct access to me for any kind of advice or application help that you need to make sure you get the right product for the right application. So it's a pretty good program. I bring it up because people ought to take advantage of it. If you're going to buy a couple $100 worth of Amsoil a year, hey, why not save yourself some money? And also it'll tie you directly into somebody like me, hopefully me. Mm-hmm. And we're here to make orders for you and to give you the best, advice on what you need to use, which sometimes with all these different technicalities and complications, it's good to have somebody who can make sure you're getting the right product.
And again, just to remind folks, you have more than 25 years of lubrication experience. You were in the Navy and aboard some nuclear-powered submarines, and that's where you first ran into synthetic oil. But there's nobody in the entire world that I know that knows oil better than Dan Watson. So please email him up, Dan Watson at thelubepage.com, or you can call him directly. What's the best number for that?
Well, the best number is 800-370-2986. And also, when they go to my website, thelubepage.com, if you go there and you look around and then you even bounce from there over to the Amsoil site, and then at the Amsoil site decide, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe I'll go ahead and sign up for this preferred customer program, then since you were on my website and you go to that other one, it's going to take my reference number with it from the website. So I appreciate if you start on thelubepage.com before you go to the Amsoil site and take my information with you. Now, at the Lube page, you can send me a question right off the Lube page and say, Dan, please call me. I want to be a preferred customer. And then you're going to get a call from me. It's a good idea if you do that to put what is the best time to call you, because I don't want to call you when it's inconvenient for you or when it's not going to be easy to get in touch with you. So list the phone number and say, call me, 6 o'clock Pacific time or Eastern time, and we'll take care of business.
Very good. We have compiled a whole slew of questions here, and we'll begin with a question from Jim, who joins us in El Paso, Texas. He writes, I live in El Paso, Texas, and it gets really hot in the summer. My car calls for using 0W20 engine oil. Should I use a heavier oil in this heat? What do you think, Dan?
Well, what we should say is, for Jim, is join the thousands who have asked that question. All these new cars with 20-weight oil and all, I bet you that Jim's probably over 40 or 50. So yep, I hear probably the music, so maybe what we'll do is we'll hold Jim's question until we come back after the break.
That makes a lot of sense, my friend. We'll take a pit stop, and when we come back, more with Dan Watson.
Giving your radio a broadcasted tune-up. This is Auto World, and your host, Bob Long.
Dan Watson from the lubricants.com is our very special guest. That's where he is president and CEO. We have a question from Jim in El Paso about the heat and his car calling for using 0W20 engine oil. He wants to know, should he be using a heavier oil in that Texas heat? And as you said, Dan, this is not an uncommon question you get.
No, I get this question all the time, and here's how I'll try to address it. You could go to a 30-weight oil, depending upon the quality of the 20-weight oil that you're using. If you're using Amsoil synthetic oil in a 0W20 or a 5W20, and your car doesn't have any abnormal cooling problems, in other words, the radiator in the cooling system is working as expected, so your thermostat's holding your car at either 195 or 200 degrees, then actually, in all actuality, it doesn't matter too much if it's 120 outside or if it's 80 outside. If that thermostat can keep your car close to the operating temperature it's designed to operate at, then it wouldn't matter. Now, one of the things, though, that we have to keep in mind is that even though the thermostat is at 200 degrees, oil always runs 30 to 70 degrees hotter than the water temperature. People go, why would that be? Well, because part of your engine is literally cooled by oil, and the oil has to transfer the heat to the water. The water actually takes the heat from oil. There's passages down the side of your engine internally where when the oil in the top of the engine, where it lubricates the valve train system on top of the engine, and it drains back down through holes which allow it to get back down to the oil pan. Well, those holes go down next to the water jacket, which is around the upper end of the engine, and the water has to be at a cooler temperature in order for the hot oil to transfer its heat. In the world of heat transfer, we're always going to have heat transferred from a higher temperature to a lower temperature. We don't live in an inverted place where heat comes from the cold stuff and moves over to the hot. So, all right, so I got to have that transfer. So what happens is sometimes your engine can be working really hard, and it can get that difference in temperature up higher and higher. So if I'm running around at 230, 240 degrees in my oil, and then because of hot heat up from the asphalt where the oil normally can cool off some in the oil pan, but it has no chance because this radiated heat, well, it gets hotter and hotter. So maybe my oil moves on up to 50, 60 degrees, maybe even 70 degrees above it. So I'm now up in the 260 to 70 degree oil temperature. Okay, now that's important because the oil cannot, most standard 20-weight oils, not good quality synthetics, but standard 20-weight oils, cannot handle that kind of temperature. Now, Amsoil quality synthetic engine oils can handle temperatures up to 320, 330 degrees without losing the viscosity or thickness of the oil. So, number one is that this 20-weight oil will still continue to lubricate, but quite frankly, even the best of synthetics might begin to thin some at that higher end of that temperature. So if you really, really get that hot, he says from El Paso, and I've been through El Paso, it can get very, very hot. You could go to 0W30 Amsoil Signature Series oil, and then you can forget about any temperature-related issues. Just forget about it. There aren't going to be any, okay? And the reason that I go that direction is because some of you guys out there, believe it or not, are driving around in a brand-new pickup truck that calls for 0W20 or 5W20 oil, and you latch onto and hook onto a horse trailer and start pulling it. Well, for my money, for me, if it was my horse trailer and my truck, and it was 105 outside and the asphalt was 140 degrees in the direct sun, I would change that to 0W30 because I just want that added insurance margin to any kind of a thin out of the oil under those worst conditions of a heavily loaded engine pulling under very intense heat. So to answer the question straightforward, under most circumstances, if you use a good quality synthetic like Amsoil synthetic, you don't have to worry about your 20-weight oil thinning. However, you don't give up much by going to 0W30. The only difference is maybe a quarter of a mile per gallon under the fuel mileage test by using that slightly thicker oil. So if you feel nervous about that temperature in that 20-weight oil, I would suggest you use Amsoil 0W30 Signature Series oil. I think that's the best I can answer, Bob.
Well, I think that's an excellent answer and certainly is very timely as we get into the hot weather around the bend, around the country. 888-662-4261. That's our toll-free line from across North America. And again, you can also be listening to us online in archive form or podcast form. We'd love to hear from you at our regular number, which is 855-660-4261, or Bob at boblongradio.com. Let's see, why don't we go back to the questions that came in via email first. From Albert in New York, I ride a Harley Davidson, and sometimes in the heat of the summer, the bike gets so hot it starts to lose compression. I've heard that Amsoil will make it cooler. Is this true?
The short answer is it is absolutely true. They have the big bike week down here in Florida, and they go over to Daytona Beach, and then they have another big gathering of them up in Leesburg, Florida. And I've sold so much Amsoil 2050 motorcycle oil, premium motorcycle oil, to Harley people because their experience was when riding through town and having to sit, because there's so many of them in those time frames when there's all these bikes running around in Daytona. And their problem is they can't go very fast, and they end up having to sit at the next light and then putt up and then sit again. And what happens is these bikes just get really hot. See, these are air-cooled bikes, and if you're not even moving through the air where they can get a good stream of air across the bike, it gets tremendously hot. I'll finish this up, Bob, after the break, but it's a good topic to talk about.
It's a great topic. More with Dan Watson. Don't touch that dial. In a long time, so I kind of let it run there for a little while longer. We got a question from Albert in New York State, and he likes to get out and ride his Harley, but as the bike gets hot, it's starting to lose compression, and he said he was heard that Amsoil does make it cooler. Is this true?
It is absolutely true. As I said before the break, that down here at the Daytona Bike Week, at the guys riding their bikes as a whole, over there, Bob, the whole street fills up, and they're riding through, parading, and having a good time, but they can't make very much speed, and of course it gets really hot, and next thing you know, they got bikes that guys are pulling over to the side because the bike starts to have trouble running, and that's the whole reason. Those bikes are air-cooled. People got to remember that. There's other bikes like Honda Goldwings that are water-cooled, but these bikes are air-cooled, and so if you don't have a lot of air movement going past, it gets a little hard to dissipate the heat. And those guys talk about having to wear almost a protective guard on the inside of their legs because the engine starts to get so hot. So a number of years ago, it's been now at least 15, 18, 20 years ago, we started selling the 2050 synthetic motorcycle oil, Amsoil, to these Harley guys, and the report came back is, oh my God, the bike's running a good 40 or 50 degrees cooler. I don't lose compression, and I don't get literally burned off the bike myself due to the heat coming off, radiating off the engine. So we've really made incredible strides in the motorcycle community with Amsoil synthetic motorcycle oils. I mean, for us, it was a product that just blew off the page. It just took off and became the fastest growing segment of Amsoil synthetic oils. And today it's still growing and it's still marching off because it really works. Now, anything that is air cooled, you have to worry about elevated temperatures. And of course, that will really be affected by ambient temperature because, hey, if I'm riding that motorcycle and it's in March in New York and the temperature is 40 degrees outside and I got on all my outfits so I'm not too cold, well, that nice cold air blowing past the fins on that motorcycle, they're going to cool that engine pretty quick. But move that into where you've got a hot summer and it's 95 degrees and all of a sudden there's not as much heat transfer taking place there because that what we call the difference in temperature has narrowed down, and it's always that difference in temperature that is what they call the driving force of heat transfer. So the smaller that is, the less heat you transfer, the hotter the bike runs. So anyway, it works well. People might ask, well, why would that be different? Aren't they both liquids? Yeah, I don't want to dig down into the deep weeds on this, but the key and the claim to fame of good synthetic oil is what they call uniform molecular structure. And if you can imagine a whole bunch of golf balls lined up beside each other, and consider that the way you transfer heat is you tap one in the column and watch what happens to the other. Well, you tap one, all of them get a little bit of energy as it takes that tap across, right? Because they're all the same size. So they transfer that energy pretty easy right across. But imagine you have a golf ball lined up next to a softball or even a bowling ball.
Yeah.
You don't transfer much that way. So uniform molecular structure makes heat transfer really efficient. So the synthetic oil can remove heat at a higher rate than its petroleum counterparts. So what it's doing is it's getting that heat out and getting it to where it can cool that engine, because there is an oil cooler that's on the bike. So that's located where with fins and stuff on it, so that as the air comes across it, it's got a place to transfer the heat to. But the synthetic oil will take it out and transfer it quicker and better than its petroleum counterpart. So it really works. Anybody out there listening, you got a Harley Davidson, you got any kind of air-cooled piece of equipment, whatever it is, if it runs really hot, it's a perfect candidate for good quality synthetic. And let me be clear about that. There are some faux pas synthetics out there that probably wouldn't be much different than petroleum. So you're going to get what you pay for. If you get a good, high-quality synthetic oil, like the Amsoil oils in particular, the Signature Series oil, or these premium motorcycle oils, they're all made with a very high-quality synthetic base stock. Big name for it, polyalpha olefins, but they are real uniform synthetic molecular structure, and it really makes a difference in the performance of the product.
An excellent question. We have a question from our affiliate station in Arcadia, Florida, and the question to our go-to oil guy, Dan Watson, is, I love to go riding on a trail with my ATV. Does Amsoil make oil for ATVs? Got me curious as well.
Well, it's something that is now about 3 years old. That's all. I mean, before we had products that we would recommend, but now we actually have a real synthetic oil for ATVs and UTVs. So it is a good enhancement to the Amsoil product line, no doubt about it. And for the very same reasons we talked about with the motorcycle oils, when you get out there, you're riding an ATV. There are a number of them that are both. There are some that are air-cooled. There are some that are water-cooled. There's different varieties. But the one thing they all tend to do is work real hard, because I've got a small engine in this four-wheel ATV, and it has to produce a lot of power. So I'm really pushing this engine performance-wise to give me all the power I need to climb up fairly, some people put those things right up a 30-degree incline and stuff. And let's just say that everybody that rides them doesn't weigh 125 pounds. Some guys be riding that ATV that weigh, 250, 260, 285. So this thing is working. And the harder it works, the hotter that oil gets. And so I need the same kind of high-temperature protection in this ATV that I would be looking for in my motorcycle applications. And the ATVs can either be, most will have some type of small filter on them. There's only a few that are splash lubrication. So you've got a good system, forced flow oil system, but you don't have a lot of volume. ATV might hold 1.5 quarts. If it might even hold 2 quarts, maybe 2.5 quarts, big one. But they don't hold a lot of oil. So when you have a small volume of oil in an engine that is being pushed to produce maximum power, a lot of its time, it's not running around what you could say in the low power comfort zone. It's running around pushing pretty high power. That's a call, that's a prescription to run something like Amsoil synthetic, because you want the ATV to last. Give it a chance, okay? So we'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more about ATV oil after the break, Bob.
Sure, and we get Max in Portland upcoming as well. And perhaps if you'd like to sneak in a call, 855-660-4261 or Bob at autoworldradio.com.
Giving your radio a broadcasted tune-up. This is Auto World and your host, Bob Long.
Have you heard the story of the hot rod race with the Fords and Lincolns was set in the pace? That story is true. I'm here to say I was driving that Model A.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here. Dan Watson is with us, and we're answering your calls and questions. Don't forget, email me up, Bob at autoworldradio.com or Dan Watson at thelubepage.com. And before the break there, we were talking about Amsoil products for ATVs, and the question came in from Jack in Arcadia, Florida, which I don't think is that far away from our greater neck of the woods. I'm not quite sure where it is.
Well, it's right down US Highway 17, due east of Punta Gorda, down there in the old Florida cow country. So it's a nice little town. It's real old. I grew up, went through there several times when I was a boy. It's old Florida.
Yeah, unlike today where everything costs so much money.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game.
But it's a great place. This guy talks about riding an ATV. I mean, down there they forgot to get into the population explosion, so it's not a whole lot different than it was 40, 50 years ago when I would have gone through it several times. But nice little town, lots of area out there. I can imagine the ranchers and stuff out there have these ATVs and UTVs all over the place. I mean, they're such good vehicles. I mean, the utility vehicles are those that you see they're not really an ATV. They're a larger vehicle with more engine and power and a little box, bed for carrying stuff like hay or wood or whatever they need. But those are nice vehicles, and a lot of you folks out there that buy them, that they're anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 for some of those UTVs, and you really ought to protect them. And when you look at what goes in them, I mean, Amsoil tried to come out with kind of the full line for these guys. So some of them take a 5W50 engine oil, and some take a 10W40. So Amsoil made both, a 5W50 and a 10W40. And then these little guys have a transmission and differential fluid. They have sort of a mixed together transmission, like a transaxle almost in some of them. And so they make a fluid for that. And, so they're trying to provide what these things take. They have a different fluid that goes in their front drive because they're four-wheel drive. So they have the front drive fluid, the transmission and differential fluid, and they have a 10W40 and a 5W50 engine oil for them. So lining up to, try to support those because those are not inexpensive pieces of equipment. And again, you push the small motors and the components in this thing to produce a lot of power, and they don't have large volumes of oil. So the best thing to do in that case is to get the highest quality, best lubrication you can. And in a lot of cases with these components, you don't do a lot of extended drains like we do in other things because they work so hard. So we'll get maybe twice the manufacturer's recommended drain interval, and that's about it because we want to protect these things more than anything because they're very expensive to fix. And a lot of times these guys that ride this type of stuff, they may be 10 miles from where they started out into there's some huge, what we would call Palmetto Flatland cattle operations down there by Arcadia, and actually you go right on across this little Highway 74 that cuts through all the way to nearly to Lake Okeechobee, and that's just all huge cattle area out there. So these guys will be riding these things around. The worst thing you want is to have your UTV break down 10 miles from where you started, so you got to walk back in before you can get somebody out there. So anyway, protection is the key ingredient for these guys. Not necessarily long drain intervals, but protection. So we'll leave it at that. And if guys have more question on that and you hear this broadcast, you can get all the information you need, again, by contacting the lubepage.com and let me know what you're interested in. We'll get you the information.
That sounds good.
So we got one more, don't we, Bob?
Yeah, we sure do.
That
Max in Portland.
There you go. So you want to read his question? Tell me what he wants.
Yeah, I'll do that. That sounds good. How was your family reunion?
Oh, it was terrific. There's always, you see everybody, they get older, and we're all surprised that we all get older and fatter, but I guess that's what happens.
I know it's shocking, especially the last 20 years of my life. It's just, I used to be the young guy. What happened, Yeah,
exactly. Let me tell you, I'm approaching what could be if I'll give away some age, I'm approaching my 50th high school reunion in 2019.
Yep.
And I'm going to be blown away when I go to that. We're all going to look old and fat, What happened to everybody? My God.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's great, though. Did you go to high school in Florida?
Graduated from Lake Placid High School, right down there again, in that sort of forgotten part of Florida. And Bob, I was down in that part the other day at a place called Frostproof, wonderful name, and at one of my business accounts, and had been in Frostproof in a few years. And this is a new place I opened up, and Frostproof hadn't changed much since it used to be our big rival when I played high school football. I'd look at this place going, is this the town that time forgot? What happened to it? It just looks like it did, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, it hasn't changed much. It's a nice town, nice, comfortable little town. That's primary business really is the giant orange groves around it. There's our listeners don't know that in Florida we have different places which are just almost all citrus, and other places which you won't find an orange tree. But in that part of the country, right down that U.S. Highway 27 spine, going down that part of south central Florida, it's all citrus. It's everywhere. And Frostproof is a huge citrus operation from the guy named Ben Hill Griffin, who is actually his name is on the Florida Gators football stadium up in Gainesville.
Oh, wow.
Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, because they had so much money
yeah.
and made a big, gigantic contribution. That's how you get your name on these things. But,
that's right.
They've been a huge citrus family for 100 years, and so that whole area around Frostproof is just huge groves that belong to the Ben Hill Griffin family. So it's beautiful. Get down there at the right time, folks. Come to Florida in February to March and go down in there, and you'll get blown away by the orange blossom smell that's everywhere. It's just powerful all over the place.
Oh, that would be cool to see.
So let me give the folks one more time just a bit of, information. If you're looking at these Amsoil products, either have questions.
Hold on 1 second, Dan. Yeah. We're in a break, so we're okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear it start.
Yeah, I know. The bumper music got me off guard, so it all worked out perfect, though.
Oh, that's okay.
Auto World, my name is Bob Long, alongside Dan Watson, the CEO of the Lube page. And Dan, I know there's so much more. We will hold question 4 for Max in Portland, and I think there are a number of things you should remind the folks about.
Yeah, just a quick reminder to remind folks that if you need more information on these Amsoil products, hey, take a look at the lubepage.com. That's my website. You can ask me questions there. And also a reminder, use that preferred customer program.
That's
We're out of
it.
time, Bob. See you later.
We're out of time. Yep. See you next week, same time, same place. I'm Bob Long. We'll do it all the world. Folks, this is Bob Long, host of Auto World Radio, with great news. We have a new sponsor, Dan Watson, who distributes Amsoil throughout the USA and Canada. Dan is one of Amsoil's largest distributors. He's a former U.S. Navy nuclear specialist and a certified lubrication specialist with 25-plus years of experience. You can listen to Dan every Sunday evening live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time here on GCNlive.com. Get all of your questions answered and ensure you get the best lubrication for your car, truck, boat, or really anything that moves. In 1972, Amsoil pioneered synthetic lubrication, and Amsoil continues to provide the best lubrication money can buy. Get the best advice for the best results. Contact Dan at thelubepage.com. That's thelubepage.com. Or call 800-370-2986. That's 800-370-2986.